This is the Townsend Finance Committee meeting for July 12th, 2022. We're going to call the meeting to order at 4:06 p.m. And I'd like to have a roll call vote, voice vote for people that are present on the committee.
Bazigas?
Sam Grant.
And Don Hayes. So with 4 members being present, we have the quorum. We expect to be joined shortly by Mark Hussey. This meeting is being recorded and it is being played live on Channel 9 and will also replay on Channel 9. At this point, there are no additions or deletions to the agenda. This meeting was to discuss and review the transfer and appropriations being requested to close out FY22. And I'm sorry, I had no additions. Is there anything that any members would like added to the agenda?
I don't have anything.
Nothing being heard, we'll move to our first. I did send out the copies of the PDFs for those on the phone so you can review them. I do have the files here so we can call them up and review. The first one to be reviewed today, I don't know if you want to see them.
I have copies of all of them. They're probably not in the same order of yours, so I may fumble for a moment, but I do have them all.
Okay, so the first one is coming from the town administrator for $35,000. We're transferring to the accounting professional services for $35,000 from land use wages. The balance of the appropriation at this time, the balance in that account we're transferring from is $48,109.01. The reason and purpose is to cover the Melanson CPA accounting services for closing FY22.
Make a motion that we pay this amount of $35,000 to be transferred to land use wages, from land use wages.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Andrea. Is there any further discussion?
I have one thing. Is that this is the exact sum of the cost, not the estimate of approximately what it was going to cost?
So I'll let you, Eric will answer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So this is, we have a contract with Melanson that is a do not to exceed contract of $35,000.
Yes, I read that.
So it's for the work to be done from the time that Terry left as the accountant, which was at the end of May. So all of the June regular accounting services plus the closing of the fiscal year for FY22. So that's that. We're not sure the exact amount of that service yet, but it will be not to exceed 35,000. So we may need to encumber it because we don't have the invoices in yet.
All right.
Where will that go back to, the money, if they do?
If we don't end up spending that, it'll go into free cash from the accounting. Just like where it would go if we left it in the land.
So and that's the piece. The discussion with the finance committee last time was we were looking not to have to potentially move this money twice. If we move 35,000 in and it only comes to 30,000 that we owe Melanson, we may have to take 5,000 to move it out. That was a bit of the concern, that if we're taking and allocating all 35,000, there may be an additional transfer. Yeah.
Yeah, although I don't think I don't anticipate us having to do any other transfers. I think everything would just roll
Okay.
into free cash at the end of it.
Mhm.
Okay, with no additional discussion, a roll call vote on the motion.
Jerome Bezikas, yes?
Andrea Wood, yes.
Sam Grant, yes.
Don Hayes, yes.
I gotta give you a new email address for me.
And Mark Hussey has just joined at 4:12 PM within the room. We were just taking our first vote. We had a quorum. We're going to approve the first transfer on the list of 35,000 coming from land use wages going to the accounting professional services.
Could you turn up the sound a little bit? It's very hard to hear, or at least on my computer.
Okay, maybe it's.
The buttons in the upper left.
Yeah. I was gonna say, this is the speakers, not the,
I don't know that there's anything that we can do on our.
on microphone, yeah.
We may just need to speak louder.
Could be usually the owl picks up pretty good, so. We'll try to speak up, Andrea, if you're having trouble hearing us, let us know.
Thank you.
Now, with this, and unfortunately, you all know me, I put together a spreadsheet that we can go through, because the first one we just looked at, there's going to be additional monies transferred from the same account. So what I did is I created a spreadsheet with the list so that we can see the original amount, and if we have a decision and we're going to hit yes that we approve, the balance in the account will update to the current account. And deducted. So as we go, and you'll see with the health insurance for the town share, there are quite a few transfers. So if we approve or not approve these transfers, the balances will have the ability to see what the balances are in the accounts, and make sure that we don't overdraw. Not that that wasn't already overdone, it's just,
Sure, it's nice to have it visible.
Yeah. So moving on to the second. The request is coming from the town administrator for $1,000 to be transferred to the accounting wages and support staff from land use wages. Again, it comes from that same account. It's $1,000 to cover the existing deficit in the account, in the accounting support staff line.
Now, is this a factual amount, or is this is it truly $1,000, or is it 800, or we just don't know, or what?
We don't, I believe it was, somewhere between $500 and $600.
Okay.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, just a kind of
Yes.
aside to the FinCom. This is a new process in Townsend for both myself and for the person who's acting as town accountant right now.
Yeah.
So I believe her feeling was the vast majority of these cases, because it's all just going to go back to free cash if it's not spent, rather than do it for an exact amount and not know that another invoice or bill or
Right.
time was going to be allocated and have to come and ask for another transfer. She made the determination to just, in most of these cases, just roll it up to the next 1,000 and transfer that amount in. And I think for purposes of settling our books
Mhm.
at the end of the year, it's not going to make a difference. It just saves the possibility of there being,
Right.
we transfer the exact amount and then late invoice comes in,
Yeah.
then we would have to run back in here.
Yeah.
to-
If there was money left anywhere to get it from.
That's true.
Right.
That's true.
Yeah, or we may be, maybe picking multiple.
Yeah, I think I think if you looked at all of these, you'll note that the vast majority of these transfers are coming from just two relatively large
Mhm.
account balances that we had. There are other smaller account balances. We're in fairly good fiscal shape. We're not in any danger, I don't believe, of coming anywhere close to
Okay.
running out of space.
According to the rules, you're not supposed to take more than 3%. Is that for one individual transfer or for all the transfers to that account together?
What?
When you make a transfer from a performing an account, you're not supposed to make a transfer for greater than 3% of the
So is that
amount.
one transaction or multiple?
Right. Does that mean 3% per transfer or for one transfer, or 3% if you have 6 transfers and they add up to an amount that constitutes 3% of the money that's remaining in the account?
I mean, I think that's an interesting question. When I discussed it with the town accountant, she does this work for multiple towns. She seemed to believe that all the amounts we're doing these are very relatively minor transfers compared to the ones that she's done before. But I don't have the.
Yeah, I've read it and it's not the exact wording in how it goes, but the three, I thought it was 3% of the total budget.
The total budget for that account, not the
Yeah.
total
So
budget
the
of the
multiple
town.
transactions.
Yeah, not the, and that's why I need to brush up on the exact, whether it's 3% of the account at the beginning of the year. Because they don't want you stashing money here and there to just move it out and pull it in. But I don't think it's 3% of the remaining balance. I think it's 3% of the total budget for that line
Oh,
item.
yeah, the total budget for that account. Yes, you're right. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's kind of like I'm still brushing up on all the pieces. So I would assume she had done that. And again, with land use wages may not be this. Yeah, I think land use wages that's about 50% of the line. Okay, sorry, I'm just gathering my thoughts here. This particular one that we're looking at it, and maybe we do have the question, it looks like it's putting two different accounts from land use wages in here, the 5,100
Right.
and 5,122.
Excuse me.
Unless you-
So,
Zoom?
if that's the case, we should be looking at a single account, not multiple accounts.
Yeah, so the information I have is from the IGR that was released in May of 2017, where they made amendments to the limitations on the end of year budget transfers. And the guidelines specifically say, in addition, the amount that may be transferred from any department under this procedure is no longer limited to 3% of the department's budget. So I believe that's something that was in effect before 2017, but the DOR changed in 2017. So there's not a limit of 3%. And
I
that's,
thought it was just the opposite. I'm
yeah,
good.
yeah. So that's I could send this to Don. It's a DLS information guideline release.
Yeah.
That I can share. with Don. And
So we're good with this then?
So I think
Yeah.
that they eliminated that sort of
Right.
limitation on the FinCom and the Board of Selectmen's ability to do those transfers.
So we need to make a motion.
Yeah, we need to make it, yeah, entertain, making a motion on the $1,000.
All right, I make the motion that we transfer from the land use wages to the accounting wages support staff, $1,000.
Second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and by Mark and a second by Geraldine. Any further discussion? None being heard. Roll call vote to approve.
Carolyn Bezikas, yes.
Mark Hussey, yes.
Andrea Wood, yes.
Sam, with us? Okay. No. And Don Hayes, yes. Sam, are you able to hear us? All right, I'm just trying to get Sam. Okay, then we will take this as approved order none with, looks like Sam had dropped out. Yeah.
Thank goodness, Mark.
You still need it for
Yeah.
the balance?
No,
Okay,
we had 5 for the quorum. We only need 4, so we still
Good.
are at 4, so do 4 to none. Okay, next. Lost my connection again. Okay, so, Andrea, if you can follow along, it doesn't look like I'm able to share. We're going for the third transfer that, was in the packet. The third is coming from the treasurer collector. It's for, $5,000. It's being transferred from the tax collector, other stipends, to tax collector professional and technical services.
I think it's the other way around.
From
From tax
insurance
credits
to
to
Mass
From,
General.
yeah, sorry.
Sorry, I just didn't.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly okay. I'm just.
The mistake that I made, Paul.
Yeah, and so with that, the balance in the account right now is $5,885.09. We make this approval, the balance will go to 885, and being that it's the end of the year, I think that's
I'll make a motion for the $5,000 to be transferred from the professional tech services to, other stipends.
I'll second that.
okay. So we have a motion from Geraldine to make approve the transfer of 5,000, a second from Mark Hussey. Any further discussion? None being heard. Roll call vote, please.
Carolyn Bezikas, yes.
Mark Hussey, yes.
Andrea Wood, yes.
Hayes, yes, and that will be ordered for the month. Sam has not come back in. Okay, next, the fourth one is transferring from the health insurance town share to MIS professional services, the amount of $2,000. To cover the MIS end of year deficit this particular time.
I'll make a motion to transfer the $2,000 from the health insurance to professional services miscellaneous.
I'll second that.
Okay, are you hearing it okay, Andrea, or is it worth me repeating that motion was made by Geraldine and seconded by Mark?
Just a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I got a message on my phone. I didn't answer it. And it was from the water department about the status of the drought, and I couldn't hear both things. And I couldn't turn it off because it was already off. So,
Okay, so I was just asking if you're able to hear, or do you want me to repeat when Gerald makes the motion and Mark seconds so that you have it captured?
yes, I'm all right.
Okay. Then with no further discussion on that, a roll call vote for the transfer of the 2,000.
Geraldine Bazekis, yes.
Mark Hussey, yes.
Andrea Wood, yes.
Don Hayes, yes. Okay, next is the fifth, and this is a transfer from health insurance town share to the library repair and maintenance equipment account, again for $2,000.
2,000 or 1,000?
I have two.
I'm looking at the wrong one then.
There,
Yeah, okay, yeah,
this,
okay.
so, this is the library for 2,000.
I'll make that motion to transfer $2,000 from the health insurance town share to the library repair maintenance equipment fund.
Second,
And, okay, so motion from Mark, seconded by Carolyn. Any further discussion? None being heard. Roll call vote, please.
Geraldine Bazekis, yes.
Mark Hussey, yes.
Andrea Wood, yes.
On Hayes, yes. And them all. At the end. Okay, sixth one, this is from Jim Smith, moving, transferred from $1,000 from the health insurance town share to the general liability and vehicle insurance. The purpose of this is to cover an unanticipated insurance deductible.
Must have had an accident, huh?
Yeah, and something we hadn't necessarily prepared for.
Unanticipated, yeah.
You're right,
We
yeah.
hadn't anticipated that, and didn't have an account to have deductibles in the
All right.
budget.
I'll make a motion that we transfer $1,000 from the health insurance town share to the general property liability and vehicle insurance.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? None being heard, a roll call vote, please.
Geraldine Bazekis, yes.
Mark Hussey, yes.
Andrea Wood, yes.
Don Hayes, yes. Passes unanimous. Next item is a $100 transfer from the health insurance town share to the Board of Health Professional Services. And this is to cover the Board of Health end-of-year deficit in their account for professional services.
Make a motion to move $100 from the health insurance town share to Board of Health Professional Services.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, questions?
What professional service are we talking about?
I don't have the specific information, unfortunately. I'm sorry about that, Andrea. I'll be honest, this one was, I think this was,
It's not a great amount of money. I was just curious more than
yeah,
anything.
I don't know. I can certainly find, because I know you guys are having a meeting in a couple of days. If you want me to find out, I can certainly find that out and bring it back to the FinCom.
I don't believe it's that important.
No, but yeah,
I didn't think the $100 one was gonna get your back up, Andrea. That's what
No, it really isn't that. It's just that so often they are transferred into professional services, and that doesn't tell you anything really. That just puts it under a heading. It doesn't tell you what it was for.
Yeah, so further detail, in regards whether it was Neshoba Board of Health or something else that they're outsourced would be the,
Sure.
services. So little
We
bit
can take a look at that.
more description.
Yep.
On there. Okay, so then questions come in regards to the motion of transferring 100. Is there anything further to discuss, or do we take a vote, ready to vote on the motion?
I'm ready.
Okay,
Gerald Bezekis, yes?
Mark Hussey, yes.
Andrea Wood, yes.
Don Hayes, yes. Board of Health. Cover their bill. Next item is coming from Rob Bochamp from the Facilities Department. The request is $5,000. This is to be transferred from the health insurance town share account again, to be transferred to facilities repair and maintenance equipment.
I make a motion, we transfer $5,000 from the health insurance town share to facilities repair and maintenance equipment.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I guess going this is pretty much another, along the same lines that we had on the last one. It says to cover facilities expense for end of year. Is this, I guess, what equipment, is it a single piece? Is it?
Yeah,
Supplies.
I do think that you're going to see with this one and the next one for facilities, this is more of a death by 1,000 cuts kind of thing with facilities where, so for instance, the electric bills were higher than anticipated, and that was $1,000 over what was budgeted. The gas bills were higher than than may have been anticipated, and there were kind of several items that came in, that needed emergency repairs. There was a generator failed over at the fire department at the end of the year, and that's not something we could let sit for the few weeks that it would have taken to get to FY 23. So I think that's kind of the grounds for that. And in fact, I think that unfortunately, Lori made just transfer rather than transfer a bunch of different amounts and smaller amounts into those accounts. She transferred one amount into a larger account.
And we'll pay,
To cover all the expense overages for the year. So this covers not just repair and maintenance of equipment, but also the energy overages, anything that fell into the facilities expenses that were over for the year.
See, and that's part of the problem. Not that I understand taking care of it that way. That's just fine. But for the permanent record, when you review these, you don't know if the person needed maintenance. Maybe it's time to buy new equipment. If we have maintenance on the same piece every year, we should be buying new equipment. Or if it's a random failure of a generator somewhere else, then that should be looked into that way. To use this as a tool to view the entire process or the needs of the department, unless there's a somewhat specific explanation, it's not any kind of a tool.
Sure, and it's I agree with you.
Yeah.
I do think for something like facilities, it is hard because
You could group it somewhat though.
Yeah.
There could be some type of explanation.
sure, and so we
Like the generator.
yes.
Just for whatever,
Yeah, so I can certainly list, going forward, list out the major items that may have.
Exactly, yeah. And I think Andrea had a good
caused
point
this.
there. It shows It's a tool, like she said, we can understand where the issues are,
Right.
Sure.
It is. and-
along with anyone else.
Right, and looking at it, and I think it was discussed in the Board of Selectmen meetings too, that we need to take a look at these amounts that we're transferring and then see how they apply into a FY '23 budget, because now everything we did for FY '23 is based on the FY '22 budget, and we're updating it by $5,000, which are we gonna,
What's it gonna look like?
what's it gonna
really?
look like
23,
in '23?
Yeah.
Is it something that we need to capture and then in a special town meeting, reallocate and look for money at that point? Because we may not have it in the health insurance town share account
Correct.
to move out next
Right.
year. So we need to, we need, we're looking at it where we are today. We're getting the amounts covered so we can pay FY '22. But we also have to make sure that FY '23 is covered and beyond if there's going to be the addition. So knowing the details and knowing and comparing the lines. So I think that's a future item for an agenda for us, is to take a look at these, compare them to the FY '23 budget and see if and have discussions to see if there's any adjustments that we need to look at and make.
I agree.
The other thing that is a little bit challenging is that, especially for things like this that are you're talking about the entirety of the town's facilities,
Mm,
the emergencies that could happen in July.
Right.
We're not asking for relief from those emergencies until the following June.
mhm.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
And so there can be things that happen in the fall or in the winter that create these sort of deficits, and it's just a matter of us kind of
Yeah.
making sure that we're keeping track of those on the facility side to know that this is an extraordinary circumstance. It's gonna,
Sure. Oh, and it's always gonna
because
happen.
it may be nothing that happened in June
Right.
that made us go over. It may be something that happened in the
But if
winter.
something
Right.
shows up all the time, we can pick up on that, like you said, make adjustments and.
So again, it's something that I have been kicking around in my own head, is maybe there's a monthly review of the budget year to date, look at where it is, so that we're not getting to the end of the year being surprised by things, that we're looking at it, whether it's every month, every 2 months, that we're looking at it to identify where things look like they might be out of whack.
And I think that makes a lot of sense, and I can certainly, sit down with Laurie, who's our acting accountant right now, and do that. It is challenging in that we're only allowed to do these municipal transfers at the end of the year.
Yeah.
I would much prefer us being able to do them year long, so we can
Mhm.
target something if there is an emergency. But, we can't do them until May and June.
And-
We're
And again,
bound.
that's why we have the finance committee reserve account for emergencies that may happen.
Right.
So, and do we have enough money in there to be able to cover it, or should we be looking at increasing that line item?
Right. So and this is a more kind of
Mhm.
general comment for the for the committee. In my conversations with Lori and Melissa, who's our new relatively new treasurer, and myself, this is our first end of year
Mhm. Yeah.
with the town. And I anticipate that over the next year, we're going to change some of the processes internally with the department
Mhm.
heads and how we handle these sort of things. So that neither the FinCom nor the Board of Selectmen
Mhm.
will be surprised. I think there needs to be some more kind of, as you say, kind of year-long communication
Mhm.
about where we see challenges with the budget so that
Mhm.
everybody's on the same page. I think it'll help us with our budgeting too, because we let you know
Yeah.
in November,
Mhm.
hey, we're gonna have a problem with this line item, then that's can go into our next year's budgeting process as well to make sure that it doesn't,
Yeah.
continue year over year.
Okay, so we
Did we go right?
We hadn't voted on it,
I think we did,
so
no.
this is the $5,000 transferring from the health insurance town share to facilities repair and maintenance equipment. We had quite a bit of discussion. We had the motion in a second, and then quite a bit of discussion. So the vote would be to approve the $5,000 transfer.
Carol Mazikas,
Oh.
yes.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, that, I got it right. Yep.
Mark Hussey, yes?
Andrea Wood, yes.
Sam Grant, yes.
Thank you.
Hayes
I
back.
just saw you back. Thank you. And Don Hayes, yes, so that's approved. Okay. Sorry, next, keeping my log together. The next is, again, from Rob Bochamp, looking for a $5,000 transfer from the health insurance town share to the facility support staff line item.
Is this for overtime for a generator and stuff like that, or?
It's for coverage of vacation times and overtime. There was coverage for emergencies. Yes, that's from a couple of different staff members. It's not the exact amount as of June 30 was 3136. So as I said, I think Laurie just transferred a larger amount into
If there's anybody
yeah. in
that
case
hasn't reported hours that might be coming in.
Right. It did come up in the Board of Selectmen, and I have asked the accounting staff to look at it to make sure that this isn't as a result of any misallocation of time to a town line item that should be to an ARPA or a FEMA line item.
Okay.
So the accounting staff is going over that now to make sure that we're not misallocating any facilities time to folks who can charge it elsewhere.
Okay.
Well, I'll make a motion, we transfer $5,000 from the health insurance town share to facilities support staff.
We have a motion from Mark. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
A second by Geraldine. Any additional questions, discussion? None being heard, a vote to approve the $5,000 transfer. We're ready for the vote.
Gerald Zickers, yes.
Mark Hussey, yes.
Andrea Wood, yes.
Sam Grant, yes.
Hayes, yes. The 10th is from the town administrator. The amount is $128.93. It is being transferred from the health insurance town share to the flag committee professional services line.
We get some new flags.
I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
I do not know why this one was overdrawn. And again, I can certainly find that out and bring it back to the committee. I think she's a very, very small.
5,000 again.
Well, I'll make a motion for $128.93 from the health insurance town share to flag commission professional service.
I will second that.
Okay, so we have the motion from Geraldine and the second from Mark. Any other discussion, comments? Questions? None being heard. We'll vote on the motion to transfer the $128.93.
Gerald Zickers, yes.
Mark Hussey, yes.
Andrea Wood, no.
Sam Grant, fine.
Don Hayes, yes. Motion passes 4-1. Transfer passes. Last transfer on the list, the 11th, from the treasurer collector, the amount of $15,000 to be transferred from the health insurance town share to the Medicare town share account. And this is to cover the Medicare end-of-year deficit.
I will make a motion, we transfer $15,000 from the health insurance town share to the Medicare town share.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and seconded. Any additional questions?
Isn't this the second? Didn't we make a transfer excuse me, I just ate a strawberry. Didn't we make a transfer to this from the reserve fund earlier on in the year?
I don't remember.
Give me,
I don't remember, but it seemed to me, I thought we had. I just wondered that maybe that's an account that we should take a
well, closer.
Yeah.
special look at.
Well, I already know, I can already tell you what there's a specific issue about this one. This was in the FY 22 budget. When that was put together, this number was put in incorrectly. So I do not know how it happened, but the current number and the number from FY 21 are larger than this number. So we currently have about $16,000 appropriated for FY 23 more in the Medicare town share, and there was about $15,000 more appropriated in FY 21. So I don't know why this number was the number that it was when it was put into the budget in FY 22.
And
And it wasn't caught before, I apologize, it wasn't caught before town meeting,
right,
because I think this wasn't an account that the funds come out on a regular basis. They're coming out in,
well, probably quarterly.
yeah. And so, at town meeting, it wasn't clear that there was gonna be
Mhm.
and quite frankly, I'm not sure anybody looked at the Medicare account to see if there's gonna be a deficit in it. I think everyone at the time assumed it was appropriated appropriately,
Right.
but unfortunately it was not. So when this budget was put together back in May of April or May of 21, that number was just
And again, a little historical, that may have been because we did retroactive pay raises.
Oh, I wonder.
And we may have miscalculated a number that was associating with that when we signed the FY 22 budget.
yeah. I mean,
It's kind of,
if it was the same as it was in FY 21, I would say maybe. But the fact that it's less than it was in FY 21, I don't know how. I don't. Maybe somebody transposed the number. I don't know. It's very odd that it was off this much, because Medicare is something you can generally. We should have a
2.9.
Yeah, we should have a balance in our Medicare account every year, because for every week you don't have someone in a job, you're saving that Medicare expense.
Right.
It should never be more. There should never be a deficit. You should always have money left in there unless you're
You should
full
have all-
employed, and then you should just spend it all. It's not this isn't something that's unanticipated or random.
Right.
This
Yeah.
is easily calculable.
It's-
And
yeah.
so the math was just done wrong, or the number was put in incorrectly. I don't know.
Okay, and Andrea, I did look up the transfer request logs. It was retirement insurance that we had a transfer request from.
Okay, thank you.
No, that's why I wanted to start doing logs. So that we have a reference when we have questions.
No, that's better than trying to rely on my memory, because that would be, yeah.
Well, and again, that was for us, so it's kind of,
Yeah.
those were the pieces. Okay. I don't think we took the vote on the $15,000 transfer to the Medicare. We did have the motion and the second. So any additional questions? Comment, okay,
Carolyn Bezikas, yes.
Mark Hussey, yes.
Andrea Wood, yes.
Sam Grant, yes.
and Don Hayes, yes, we'll, apply it, and that leaves in that account, there is $33,393.42. So,
Yes, I'm glad that your math adds up to the same as ours.
Yeah.
So what did we just do? About $82,000?
you did $71,228.93.
So unfortunately, just to let the committee know, the reason why we're having a meeting on Thursday is there are a couple of other accounts we're gonna need to balance. I will make sure that we have a little bit more detail for them. The Board of Selectmen is gonna vote on them tomorrow night, and then I'll get them over to you guys as soon as I possibly can for your meeting. And then, so this is the question I need to ask the Board of Selectmen too, and I also need to ask the FinCom, because it came up in this specific instance, which is, I know the general process is it goes to the Board of Selectmen first and the
Mhm.
FinCom second.
Yeah.
Has it ever gone the opposite direction? Because it's possible I could have brought those to you and had you approve them first, and then we were able to skip your other meeting. But I didn't
Mhm.
want to kind of upset the apple cart and do things in the opposite order that it always.
No,
been
I
done.
think the budget is the selectmen's and so it needs to be approved by them first.
Okay.
And again, we may have procedures in there. I'll take a look at the procedures that are posted online.
I didn't want to do it a way other than anybody had done it before, but
Yeah. No, it's always been, the finance committee does see it after the selectmen have approved it.
so I'm sorry, Andrea.
Thank you. One thing is that in the past, yes, it's the selectmen present the budget, yada, yada, but we got the worksheets as they came in to review and to, try to keep pace. And then if they lowered any of them, worked with their departments and lowered any of the budgets, then when we came to the discussion, we would alter it then. But some years, we've not gotten any of the worksheets until quite late in the game, and it makes it very hard. It makes it very hard to get an idea of the flow of things. I would like it if the FinCom could get the worksheets as they came in,
Okay,
instead of when they were all put down in a formal budget.
right. So what that is in regards to is the process for the budgeting is there's worksheets that are sent out to each of the department heads. They fill it in with their salaries, their ask and their salary requirements and prior year and the next year. Those worksheets give us that ability. Instead of taking a salary line that has $100,000 on it and finding out it's 5 people at 20,000 apiece, we don't have that backup information on the spreadsheets or expenses and what the expenses are. So I believe those are the spreadsheets you're talking about, correct, Andrea?
Mm-hmm.
And for example, this year, we had a department that had never supplied any until a week before the town meeting. And so we were out of sync with the process and trying to catch up at the last minute. And so one of the things, and for Andrea's, I mentioned it, I'd like to do a postmortem of the last budget. And that would be one of the key indicators is maybe we didn't start early enough, have those. One of the things that department heads have told me is they fill out that information and they have to copy it from there into the lines they submit. So that almost like a more integrated solution of when they fill out information, have it pass forward so that it's easier so they don't have to take numbers and do it once or come up with a number and put it on the omnibus line and then have to backfill. So they like to try to have something integrated in that they fill in information once, it passes forward and updates.
Sure, and I think that's some of that is a technology question, which you're probably the person I need to sit down and talk to about that in the town, and I think that makes all the sense in the world to only have folks have to enter things once and it goes everywhere it needs to go. This kind of upcoming budgeting process is likely to feel different to everyone in the town because I'm a different person than any of the last people who've done it.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely.
I will say,
work with everybody.
and maybe the pieces are, we pull it together, we have a work session with Board of Selectmen, Finance Committee, and yourself to work through, look at, there's a procedure that is out there. We don't seem to have followed it last time. It's kind of like, and so if that's a good guide or something that needs to be updated, that's a place to start to say, this would work well if we did this and followed it. or maybe it needs to be modified a little bit.
Sure.
And again, get input from the department heads to go there. So I thought, get by these, transfers, and then as we get early into, Q1 of 23 here, that, in the August, September timeframe, really take a look at what we did, even all these transfers, and the work we did, is there other ways to improve them? So that's,
John, didn't we ask them to have them in by a certain point and they weren't?
we did, again, it's kind of,
Well, that's,
Eric is here full time.
I know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and so that's an improvement, number one.
right.
And so as we're moving into next year, I think we have more firm ground to stand on. Because there were a couple of things that didn't happen, and we have to look, and some of it, I think it is defining, seeing who is defined as the role, like the town administrator before Ross had certain things that he would do. He probably managed the spreadsheet more actively than Ross did, and things like that. So, and again, Ross was not full-time, so it's kind of like, I don't think he spent a lot of time doing it. I'm not saying that, I'm just saying, look at the procedure, see what it is, see what the roles are and the responsibilities, and make sure they're in the right places.
Sure. I think that makes
That's
absolute
probably,
sense. And I think,
Mm.
yeah, so we're gonna, we do have a new crew that's gonna be doing this. So, I think now is the time to look at all those
Mhm.
processes, make sure they make sense for the FinCom and for the Board of Selectmen and for the staff, and then, as you say, make sure that we're following them and being timely with all
Right.
our submissions, so that we don't end up,
Mhm.
unfortunately, we, like a lot of small towns, are a little bit at the mercy of the school department and how their process works.
When we look at that, there is a section about the contact and interfacing with the school board also.
Right.
And that broke down. I didn't know this existed until April or May of this year.
So, but I've already reached out to the school.
Yep.
The school department, and, we're gonna be a lot more active in their
Mhm.
budget discussions than I think, as they say, Townsend has been in 7 or 8 years.
Mhm.
They haven't had people show up.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do this a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So,
Good.
That's-
hopefully we'll all have a better handle on everything.
Right.
Sooner, so that we're not doing the last second changes. like
The
that.
one thing that I noticed on our form, though, there's a miscellaneous. A lot of things fall into miscellaneous, and we always have to come back and say, what is miscellaneous? Because miscellaneous to him, not the same miscellaneous to that. So there's
And there's miscellaneous is of the same category sometimes, and I don't understand that.
yeah, too much miscellaneous. We'd like to know what really miscellaneous is.
And it's hard to define some things, like, for sure, but, a little more descriptive.
Just a
Such
little more.
just-
It is. Sometimes it says new equipment, description of what that new equipment is. It just all the, it's similar to what we, questions that came up today. Is it,
Well, I think had gotten used to just putting a lot of
Mhm.
miscellaneous and.
so a place so that we can store notes and back up
Yeah.
that kind of information.
No, I
So,
hear you. That's
Mm.
it's a reasonable expectation. I do know that from doing, department level budgets for a decade or so, it's a balancing act. How much money that you spend, at the end of the year, and sometimes it's easier to ask for an extra money in miscellaneous where people aren't looking too close than ask for, what I actually need is I need $500 more in this account. I need $1,000 more in this
You
account.
share it,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I know how departments do it, so I will pay attention.
Thank you.
50 years ago, I was taught that miscellaneous is almost a never category unless you've really read through and what you're doing is it doesn't fit in any of the other things after you've read them 3 or 4 times. Then and only then can miscellaneous be applied.
And part of it might be looking at it with the way the omnibus is put together, there's less categories on the omnibus and there's not an
True.
account
So that may
line.
be-
So there might be with the accountant, work together on what lines we're gonna put in there or other
What needs
ways
be
to
added.
blow it out. And if you want to group miscellaneous together, but you do have, say, 5 lines, it could be individually charged to. If you have, 5 $1,000 lines, miscellaneous is 5,000, but break down to five line items that they can charge to.
Yeah, and that's there's the way that the budget has been done is another thing that we're gonna take a look at, and it's probably the budget for FY24 is not gonna look like the budget for FY23, the budget for FY22. Because I know that Melissa and Laurie and I have kind of already sat down and talked about it. We wanna kind of lay things out a little differently, and I think the Board of Selectmen is open to laying things out a little differently so that we're not running into some of the same issues that we've run into every year about, having to do these transfers, because it's not real clear where all the money's coming from. And-
Right, yep.
So I hear everything you guys are saying, and I totally understand.
Thank you.
I was gonna say, that even with the ARPA money, there's transfers that are going in, they have ARPA money in the lines and they transfer it out to 2 different lines in the budget that we're paying, whether it's the health insurance or whether it's the salaries for some of the people that are on the payroll in some of the positions.
Yeah.
That to me is the challenge we're gonna have next year is we use ARPA money to pay for one of the challenges. The ARPA money is paying for salaries that are eventually gonna come, that the town is gonna have to pay out of their revenues.
Yes.
And
That's
that's
gonna be an issue.
If they can afford it.
Yeah. right. It's kind of like some of those things, and I have gone onto the DLS site, they have some good spreadsheets to try to do a 5-year plan ahead based on where we are, so we can feed in the FY23 numbers and see what they're gonna look like.
Sure.
Up through FY25
Right.
or 26,
Yeah,
5 years out,
yeah,
so up to 28, yeah. Yeah, and again, do we count on it 100%? No, but it's a look forward. It's kind of like gives you a vision into that future. Okay, so we've gone through. The only other thing is, we do have the meeting scheduled for Thursday.
Right.
At 4:00. And pretty much, hopefully it can, this was just an hour, so hopefully it, there's not as many or.
I do not anticipate there being as many.
As many, so we'll
Thank you.
we'll go through.
So hopefully we'll
It'll
be,
be a quick one at 4?
It'll be quick,
Okay.
yeah, 4:00, quick, and we'll move it on and get to it.
I want to give you a new email address too. I just
Okay.
can't.
Okay.
keep up with it. I don't look at the other one enough, so.
Okay, that's fine. We'll get it.
Yep.
Okay, with that, the next meeting, is set. Motion to adjourn at 5:05.
I'll make a
And
motion.
that's,
we adjourn at 5:05.
Sorry about that.
Okay, second,
Second.
roll call vote.
Yes, Geraldine.
Yep.
Mark Hussey, yes.
Andrea Wood, yes.
Sam Grant, yes.
Don Hayes, yes, we are adjourned. Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Carolyn put the cart before the horse there a little bit.
Okay, have a good evening, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. I appreciate you guys being willing to come back on Thursday, and hopefully we'll have everything wrapped up.